Hello and welcome to my kitchen here at Trails End 62. Today we're going to be doing sauerkraut. Now this is a two-part process. The first part is going to be to ferment, and then after fermenting, then we will do the canning process. So we're going to ferment sauerkraut, which is basically fermented cabbage. Now I have tried this with store-bought cabbage. I wasn't real impressed. Store-bought cabbage tends to be a little dry. It's been dehydrated a little bit because of cutting and transportation and all that kind of stuff that it goes through. Fresh cabbage out of the garden is probably a little bit different because you got to take the moisture from the cabbage to make your brine, and use salt to make that brine, and it has to be enough to cover the cabbage when you're making sauerkraut. So store-bought cabbage is a little dry. It's a little harder to do than your regular fresh cabbage out of the garden. I don't do it. Why? Well, you got to shred the cabbage. You got to go to all that work to do all that. So again, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I like to do it the easy way. So what I use is I use cold slaw. A little package of cold slaw to make my sauerkraut. This is cabbage and carrots. You can ferment carrots too, yes. So I use this. It's already shredded. It's already ready to go. It's bagged up, so it's a little bit more moisture in the product than your regular cabbages that you buy in the store. So I like to use this because it's already done. It's easier to do. I put this in a bowl, and we'll get started doing this. The first thing we're going to do is you add salt. Now, as a general rule, for fermenting in this method, you use a salt brine. You use about 3 tablespoons of salt per 5 pounds of cabbage. That's the general rule. 3 tablespoons of salt for 5 pounds of cabbage. If you're going to, when you're fermenting. Now, this isn't that much. And I'm doing this because I'm showing you the fermenting process. I've already done this, so I've got some ready to can already. So that's what, and proportionally, if you use less than 5 pounds, of course, you ratio it down and use however much. This, for example, is 14 ounces, so I'm probably going to use about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. But the thing about the salt is you have to have enough salt to bring out the moisture to make the brine, because your cabbage has to be covered in the brine. It has to stay below the liquid level. You can make some more brine if you need to make sure that it's covered. It's not recommended because it's not a natural brine. You're using water and you're adding salt. You have to boil it and then let it cool before you use it for brine. So the best method is natural brine. But if you need more, especially when you go to the canning process, then you may have to make a little extra because it's got to be covered at all times. So 3 tablespoons per 5 pounds of cabbage or slaw to make the brine. But start out with just a portion of that. Now I'll tell you what I'm talking about when we start doing this, because the key is you don't want to get it over salty. You don't want too much salt. You want enough salt to bring out the moisture in it, and that you can taste it, but not make it too salty. So as you're doing this, you want to taste it raw, because if it tastes good raw, it doesn't have too much salt raw. It's not going to have too much salt fermented. If it has too much salt raw, it may have too much salt fermented. It gives you that salty taste, too much salt in it. So that's the key factor. So you start with a partial amount. You don't go the full, you don't go whole hog all at once. Don't put in, take 5 pounds, put in 3 tablespoons to start with. Put in 2 tablespoons. See what that's doing. See how that's bringing it out. Taste it. See if the taste is all right. If it needs a little bit more salt, add a little bit more salt. So the 3 tablespoons per 5 pounds is a general rule. So I want to make that clear on fermenting. All right. Now the thing about fermenting is you're bringing out the probiotic properties of the cabbage. And the other thing is that you're making it more acidified so that it can be canned. Do not try to can cabbage like this, coleslaw, sauerkraut, that's not been fermented or have vinegar added to it. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. I don't add vinegar to my stuff. I don't like the taste of vinegar all the time, so I don't do that. You have to raise the acidity, and that's what fermentation does. It raises the acidity so you can water bath can sauerkraut. So this is the way I do it. I'm going to show you how I do it. That's how I recommend you, if you're interested in doing it, that's how I recommend you trying it, but you need to be your own conscience on this, okay? My recommendation is, if you're not going to ferment it, this recipe, if you're not going to ferment this recipe, then don't try canning it. Ferment it first, all right? There are other recipes that you can without fermenting because they have vinegar in them. I'm not doing that, just so we're clear. All right, and there's several different ways of fermenting. We'll get into that in just a minute. But first of all, let's get started. We're going to get this already shredded, mostly cabbage. Got some carrots in there. We're going to put this in a bowl. And the other thing is, this one in particular is just, just green cabbage. You can get it where it has the purple cabbage in it, which kind of gives you a little different taste and a little different color on your sauerkraut, and I'll show you that too because of what I did had purple cabbage in it. So we'll get to that in a minute. First, we'll get started here. Get this cabbage in a bowl, and I'll show you what we're talking about to get it ready for the fermenting process. Okay, now you want to use a pickling salt, a canning salt, any unrefined salt, generic salt, not a refined one. Canning, pickling salt. I'm using a Himalayan pink salt, which is 100% pure, natural, and unrefined. Sea salt, I think, is another option, as long as it's unrefined. Okay, so I'm going to use this Himalayan salt. Start out with about a teaspoon. I'm going to put it in here, sprinkle it around. And what this is going to do is this is going to bring the natural juices out. Now, I am going to use my hands and massage it. Kind of like you're kneading dough. Okay, now the reason is this helps get the salt in, so you get it and squeeze it. And you start squeezing, it mixes the salt in and starts getting the juices out. Now, of course, wash your hands, make sure they're clean. Do not use antibacterial soap when you're washing your hands before you do this, because the natural bacteria in your hands aids in the probiotic fermentation. At least that's what they tell me. But make sure your hands are clean, okay? Dirty hands don't work. And but just don't use antibacterial soap. I guess you can wear gloves. That's up to you. But you can start to see this kind of starting to shine a little bit. That's the moisture coming out of it. And I'm just squeezing it and massaging it. I'm going to run a little taste test here. Okay, that tastes salty enough for me. It's not too salty, it's right on the edge. The key is, if it tastes fine raw, it'll taste fine sauerkraut. Your kraut won't be too salty. It's whatever it tastes like with your saltiness raw, that's how it'll taste once it's fermented. So don't get too much salt in there. And this is starting to juice up pretty good. Now a lot of times with this store-bought stuff, even regular cabbage, you have to massage it real good. See how it's starting to go down here? Massage it real good, and then you may have to cover it, leave it set for 30 minutes or so to let the salt start working better on it. because you want this kind of wilted with the salt. Can you see the juices flowing out of there? I don't know if you can see it or not on the camera. Anyway, you want the juices flowing with the salt. If you need to leave it for 30 minutes or so and let the salt finish absorbing in there, because you want to be able to see some moisture, see some liquid in the bottom there. You want to be able to see that liquid coming out, because you need that to cover your sauerkraut when you put it into your jar. Now this is not going to make a quart jar, because when you do it, you tamp it down pretty tight. This will probably, we'll probably just put this in a pint jar. But you can see the difference and the moisture that's coming out of it. You want that because you want that in your, that's your brine. Now again, if you don't have enough brine, then you need to make you some. If you don't have enough brine, then it's 1.5 tablespoons of salt to a quart of water. You bring that to a boil, then you let it cool to room temperature before using. Alright, so this is ready to go into the jars. Okay, I'm going to use a 1.5 jar, because I think I've got enough to do it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in the kraut into the jar, and we want to tamp it down, pack it down hard, because you want the juices to flow. So we put it in the jar, and then I'm going to tamp it down. I've got this here. This is a jelly tamper is what this is. They make a kraut tamper, and I think it's got a flatter bottom on it than this. But this works for me. So we're going to tap it in there real tight, because we want to get them juices to flow up above the cabbage. Again, you can see the juices down there. See how wet it got on the bottom there? That's what we're looking for. We want them juices. So we'll tamp it down. Put some in, tamp it down. Pack it in there pretty tight. Get the juices above cabbage line. Because when you're fermenting, what you want is you want everything stay below the brine line. Your salt liquid, that's your brine. And so when you're fermenting, everything needs to stay below the brine line. So when we cap this off, we're going to cap it off with stuff to hold down the cabbage to keep it from floating up above the brine line, and a weight to hold it down. Now, like I said, there are other ways to do this. I use this the airlock method because I like it. I do small batches. Works great for me. Some people use crocks and other things. That's okay. I don't show that because I don't use that. This is what I use. This is what I show. And if you have another way you want to ferment it, that's up to you. We're just doing the fermenting process so that we can can it at this point. Although we will keep some out for our probiotic aspect. So, I probably could have got by with a pint jar, but you want to make sure that you leave plenty of headspace for this to ferment.
If you don't, it's liable to bubble over. Okay, I think we got plenty of brine in there. Let me show you what I mean. These are some that I've already done. Notice the color on them has got a more pink color. That's from the red cabbage. These are caps with a burping flap. And this is my airlock. And notice I had these too full. This is what happens. It can overflow. And that's why I always put them in a pan or a bowl. See, this is all it saves your cleanup. Okay, this one I didn't get too full. These two I got, actually all of those I got over full, except for this one. So that's how it should be. That keeps any air from getting down in there, and it burps, releases gases, and comes up. So this is what we're going for right here. These were too full. I'd say I did that on purpose so I could show it to you, but I didn't. So anyway, they were too full, and they kind of, you know, bled over. But anyway, these are ready to go to can or put in the refrigerator, whichever I'm going to do with those. Notice there's one missing here. I'm already eating on that. And well, let me show you how we get these to weighted down. Plenty of juice in the top of that, and we want to weight them down. You can do it with a lot of different things. You can put a leaf of cabbage in there and put a weight on it. You can use cheesecloth and put in there, and different things like that. As long as you keep everything down below the water, or below the brine line. Now I use these. They're made for this. They go down in here, and if you need to put a piece of cheesecloth underneath that, you can. This has got plenty of brine in it, so I'm not going to worry about it. And then I also use a weight. This is a glass weight that I put in on top of it, because that helps hold it down and hold it in place and keeps everything below the line so that it doesn't float up or come loose. Now that's the way I do mine. There are other methods of doing that. Feel free to explore that if you want to, and do it however you want, but this is how I do mine. This is what I use. I do it in small batches. I've got 4 of these lids, and then I've got 3 of those burping lids, and that's all I need to do. This is a 1.5 pints, and then I put the lid on, screw it on good and tight. Alright, it's got the hole in the top that my airlock goes into. Now you have to be careful when you get these fuller. You don't want to get that liquid so it comes up your air holes in the bottom of this. Let me show you here. I don't know if you saw them or not. There's air holes in the bottom of this. Okay, that's where the gas goes out, comes up here. This is covered. Put water in here, it bubbles up and comes over that, but this needs to be down below the line of the lid, but not so that it'll get down in the water. We'll take a little water, we'll pour in here. We put our cover down in there over top the tube. They're going to fill this up about halfway, a little over halfway full of water, like that. And put our lid on here, and this has holes in it so that the gas can escape. And then we'll set that in a cool, dark place for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a little longer, whatever, till it becomes sauerkraut. That's how I ferment sauerkraut. I put them in these jars and let her set that way. There are different ways to do it. This is the way I do it. But the key before we process it and can it is to make sure we ferment it, because that raises the acidity of the cabbage, and we'll be able to water bath it. Once our sauerkraut is
fermented and done. Now we have two choices. The first choice is we put it in the refrigerator, seal it up tight. Okay, take the airlocks on, or if you've got it in a crock, put it in jars or something. Seal it tight, put it in the refrigerator. It will stay in the refrigerator, the probiotic state of sauerkraut, for several months, maybe even up to 6 months. Just have to keep an eye on it. It'll stay for several months in that state. So I've put some of mine in the refrigerator. I'm going to give some away. But it's at the probiotic state. I'll put it in the refrigerator. The rest of it I'm going to can. Now, that's the other process, the water bath can it. Because it's been fermented, the acidity rate is up high enough that it can be canned. I'm going to water bath can it and process it that way. Now, I have chosen to can mine in half-pint jars. Why? Single servings. I kind of like the convenience of that. If you like a lot of it, you got a big family, you can can it in pint jars, you can can it in quart jars. Either way. I'm doing mine in half-pint jars because you know, that's a one serving. If we're doing something where we need more than that, like we're doing pan sausage and sauerkraut, we may need to put a couple jars in there. That's okay. I'd rather need to open another jar than have too much and you know, it's sitting in the refrigerator. So this will, after you open it, after it's been canned, you can open it and store it in the refrigerator. Now there are two ways that you can can. You can raw pack it, basically what it's called, in which you take your sauerkraut straight from the jar and you put it into your jars to can it. Now, or you can heat it up and can it. Either way. I'm going to try doing both ways. I've got two canners. One canner I'm going to heat it up and I'm going to do it the hot pack. The other one I'm going to do it the raw pack. I'm going to see what the difference is. My instinct is to go with the raw pack because that would be less additional cooking. However, when you raw pack it, then you have to run it through the water bath processing canning. You have to run it longer. So I'm not sure whether that's going to balance out or not. So I'm going to try it both ways and see which one actually tastes better at the end result. So we're going to raw pack it and we're going to put it in our jars and we're going to also hot pack it. Now I'm going to do the hot pack first, primarily because I made some more brine, 1.5 tablespoons of salt, sea salt, canning salt, pickling salt, any unrefined salt. I happen to use Himalaya pink salt. So you put 1.5 tablespoons of salt per quart of water, heat it up to a boiling, then take it off and let it cool. Well, since I'm going to be doing the hot pack on this, I don't need it to cool, so I'm going to do that first while it's cooling to do the raw pack. In case I need some more brine in my jars, because it needs to be covered. Alright, just like any canning process, when you do something like this, it needs to be covered with the liquid. So I've got some extra brine made up just in case. Alright, so first thing, hot pack. We're going to start by putting our sauerkraut. I measured it out loosely because you're not going to pack it into the jars. You're going to put it in there loosely, then cover it with the liquid. Going to leave about a 1/2 inch head space on it, and put it in there. So you put it into a pot, bring it up to a boil, stirring frequently so you don't burn it, and then you remove it, and then you fill the jars with the sauerkraut and cover with hot brine. So I'm going to heat this up on the stove, and I measured it out. It came out to be that I used 1.5 pint jars. Of course, it wasn't a full 1.5 pint. So I took it out of the 1.5 pint jar to put it loosely into a measuring cup. Came out to be 1 quart of sauerkraut. So I've got that in here. I put a little extra brine in it because I'm going to bring it to a boil. There wasn't a lot of, once you take it out of the pack state, the liquid goes down, which is why you need some extra brine if you're going to cool pack it, but even hot pack. So I put it in here. I'm going to heat it up, heat it to a boil, and then remove it from the heat and then fill my jars within a ½ inch of headspace.
So here we have the sauerkraut put in the pot, some extra brine in there, and I'll heat this up just till it boils, and then I'll shut it off. So it will go in the jars hot. I'm going to fill up my jars. I'm not going to pack it, shake it a little bit, but not pack it. And I'm going to fill them up 1 inch so that when I put the liquid in, then I'll put the liquid in to a ½ inch. So to catch you up where we're at here, I brought it to a boil, took it off the heat, set it over here, and now I'm filling up my jars. I forgot to tell you I brought it to a boil, but I did bring it to a boil, just so you know. I'm not cutting any corners here. And then we brought it here, and we're going to put it in the jars. Now I'm straining out the liquid as I do this to maximize the amount of sauerkraut I actually get in the jar. Now, as I said, I made some extra brine, so I'm going to fill this up to ½ inch. Then I take my debubbler and I'll stick it down in there, debubble it. Then we wipe our rims. Now we're going to put our lids on and our rings, and we will finger tight. Now we will water bath our hot pack. For pints, it's 10 minutes. For quarts, it's 15 minutes. So these are ½ pints. They'll go the same as pints. Now that's the standard for 1,000 feet or less. I happen to be a little over 1,000 feet. So I will do mine for 15 minutes for pints or 20 minutes for quarts on the hot pack. Alright, so there we go, finger tight, got those on, got 5 ½ pints. I will water bath mine for 15 minutes. It's 10 minutes if you're 1,000 feet or under, 15 minutes if you're over 1,000 feet up to 6,000 feet, and then it's 20 minutes over 6,000 feet. Make sure you check your water bath charts for your altitude where you're water bathing. We're now ready to do our raw pack, and I just emptied the jar into here, and I'm going to put the sauerkraut into the jars. I did heat up my brine so that it will be hot going into the canner, because that's, we kind of want it that way to can it. But if you're going to use your brine for the fermenting, you need to make sure you let it cool before you use it. Don't try to use your brine hot when you're doing the fermenting. If you need extra brine for the fermenting, make sure it's not hot. Alright, but for this purpose, since we're going to be canning it anyway, it's going to get hot. We heated up our brine so that it will in fact be hot when we put it in our water bath canner, so that it won't take quite so long to heat up. Now, since these are raw packed, they're a different time. The standard time for under 1,000 feet is 20 minutes for pints, 25 minutes for quarts. And since I'm over 1,000 feet, I'm going to be 25 minutes for pints and 30 minutes for quarts. So half pints are done the same as pints. So it'll be 25 minutes for me. For my hot pack, I only did it 15 minutes, but this will be 25 minutes. So we'll see the cooking process, the canning process versus the cooking process, and see how that works. But I'll get these capped, put in my canner, and we'll get these started for 25 minutes and get these canned. Okay, here we have our sauerkraut. It's been processed. 5 of them I did with a hot pack, which means I heated them up first, and 5 of them I did which was called a raw pack, in which I didn't heat them up first, but they had to process longer. So this one here, that was the one that was heated up first, and this one was the one that was raw packed. So let's taste them and see which one is, or if there's any difference at all. First we'll do the hot pack one here. Give me a good chunk of it there. Okay, now granted it's not crunchy like the probiotic is just after doing the fermentation, but it's still got the sauerkraut sour. Not too bad a texture, not real mushy, but soft. And now we'll try the other one. This one was the raw pack one, but it was processed longer. I don't find any difference in the flavor, really. The flavor is comparable. They're both good and sour like sauerkraut. They both have some texture to them, not crunchy like your probiotic is, the fresh fermented. But still they have some texture to them. They're not mushy. They're about the same. Near as I can tell, they're about the same. So, you know, it's just your choice. You want to process it a little bit longer, or you want to cook it before you can it. Either way seems to work out good. I don't find very much difference. If I didn't know which one was which, I couldn't tell you which one was which. So they're both good. They've got the sourness to it, the sauerkraut. They would be good to put in a hot meal that you put the sauerkraut in, you know, sausage and cheese and potatoes, and I might have that for supper. So, you know, with sauerkraut, that might be good. Something like that. And there we have it, sauerkraut fermented for probiotic endeavors and canned for the taste and sourness of the sauerkraut. Tastes good either way. Both of them are nice and sour. For the sauerkraut probiotics, it's more crunchy because it is fresh, and it does have the probiotic aspects, but it must be refrigerated. It will last in the refrigerator several months. As long as you keep the lid on it, keep it in the refrigerator, it should last for several months. Some people say up to 6 months, but just kind of keep an eye on it after a few months if it's in there that long, which is why I made the smaller servings when I canned it. So once it's opened, after it's been canned, it needs to go in the refrigerator. Otherwise, it's shelf stable. Well, we're talking maybe like everything else, 18 months to 2 years, something like that, depending on how it's stored and that sort of thing. So just always watch it with everything. If in doubt, throw it out. These are my suggestions for me, for what I do on sauerkraut. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, from my house to your house, from my kitchen to your kitchen. God bless.